good day, good day. It's so nice of you to join me again. It's a beautiful day, even if it is November already. My goodness, this year has almost seemed to have flown by. Well, it'll soon be 1881. I can't believe it. It's shocking. It seems like only a few days ago we were celebrating the dawn of 1880. But that's how things seem to go, and the older I get, it seems the quicker the time goes by. Well, I don't know what's happening in your world, and I probably shouldn't be told. That it might be disturbing to me. To some of the things I have heard are I don't understand, but that's neither here nor there. But we've had a rather exciting past week or two. We've had a major shift in our political scene here as James Garfield was elected president. He's our president-elect. Will take office in January of next year. He's a Republican. That's a very big shift from what we have been doing, but we'll see how it goes. And even more exciting news, out in the frontier town of, what was the name of it? Tombstone. What a strange name for a town. But out in the frontier town of Tombstone on the 26th of last month, there was some sort of major shootout at a place strangely named the OK Corral. I would hope most corrals are okay, but anyway, that seems to be the name of it. But anyway, it was a major shoot. I won't bore you with the details, but it was rather interesting news to read. Oh, of course, what am I talking about to you? That's ancient history. Exciting news for me is boring old history to you. Oh well, that's how life goes, isn't it? Actually, that brings me to my subject for today. We're going to talk about entertaining, because we are moving towards the Christmas season, and so dinner parties and galas tend to be a little more frequent. So let's look at this as a host. If I'm going to throw a dinner party, there are certain things that I should do. One is not make it too large. 8 to 10 guests. If you're inviting couples, then 4 to 5 couples. Or if you want to count yourself, then no more than 4 couples. If your dinner parties get too large, then you are unable to do some of the things that a good host should do. Now you're wondering, what am I talking about? Well, you see, there's a vast difference between having a gala or a party or a dance at which you can have numerous people, because that's expected. But if you're having a dinner party, it should be a little more intimate. So yes, restrict yourself to yourself, your spouse, and maybe 3 to 4 couples at the most. Why do I say this? Well, your duty as a host is to be sure that each guest feels that they are special and that you are paying attention to them. And if you have a huge number of guests, it's very difficult to do that. One of the mistakes we tend to make sitting around the dinner table as host or hostess is to get involved in a conversation with 1 or 2 of our guests to the neglect of the others, and that's a terrible thing to do. There's nothing sadder than having one of your guests sitting there poking at their food, feeling completely left out. That's terrible. I have been in that position myself a few times, and find it quite awkward, to be honest. So be sure to engage each of your guests around the table. Another rule, as I say, around the table is never invite more guests than your table will sit comfortably. You've all heard that old saying about rubbing elbows with your neighbor. Well, that's something you do not want to be doing at a dinner table. It's rather uncomfortable. If you need to get up to leave for, well, we won't go why, but having to try and get out from the table when you're squeezed in between 2 people can be rather awkward and sometimes embarrassing. So make sure your guests have plenty of elbow room, so to speak, and can sit comfortably to eat their meals. Some people can sit demurely and their arms at their sides, and others are what I call flappers. They need their elbows out, and you need that little bit of room to move around. So try to make sure all your guests can sit comfortably at the table and enjoy their meal without feeling awkward or feeling like they're intruding on the space of the person next to them. You should always avoid topics of passion. Now, when I say that, I'm not talking about love affairs and things like, although that's probably not a good table conversation either. But try to avoid things that people get passionate about. Politics, although I did just mention Garfield being elected. Sports or religion. Those three things people can get quite passionate about, and the last thing you want is an argument breaking out at your dinner table. It'll just spoil everyone's appetite. If there's a matter of business that needs to be discussed, save that for the smoking room after dinner. Allow the ladies to take their leave if they wish and go to the parlor, and then you can discuss your business with the gentlemen folk in the smoking room afterwards. Now, from what I understand of changes between now and your age, that would seem rather, what's that word they use? It is not coming to me, but it would not seem proper etiquette or polite to separate the men and the women. But in my age, that's the norm, that's the expected. Most women would not want to be in the smelly smoking room with the cigars and listening to the men talk boring business. Now, having said that, at the table, on topics, be sure to include the women folk. I myself have quite often been shown a new point of view by my wife or by some of our lady guests. They are not demure, thoughtless little things, and if you think that as a gentleman, then shame on you. These are intelligent ladies. And they keep up on what's going on, sometimes more so than we gentlemen do. We tend to get rather focused on certain things, whereas ladies often are aware of numerous things going on and are often more observant than we are. So don't dismiss what they have to say, because they may provide some insight that you have overlooked. So be sure to engage each of your guests at the dinner table in conversation. If you feel someone's being left out, it is your obligation as the host to include them. Ask them a simple question. Don't put them on the spot. Don't ask them some difficult question that is going to embarrass them or make them feel really uncomfortable. But ask them something simple like, "So Mary, what have you been up to recently?" Or if you know they have a favorite charity they deal with or interest, ask something about that. Ask something general that involves all the conversation. Has anyone read the latest book by so-and-so? And what do you think of it? And again, try and include everyone. Now, if somebody starts showing signs of being uncomfortable being included, then by all means you can gently sort of let them be comfortable in their own space. But no one wants to go to a dinner party and then feel like the odd person out. It's not nice. Know your couples as well. Don't invite couples you know that don't get along. You're just asking for trouble. Try to avoid, unless at all possible, inviting guests that are full of their own self-importance, who will try and dominate the table and the conversation, and that just spoils it for everyone, and even the host and hostess can find themselves in an awkward and embarrassing situation. So try and make everything as comfortable as possible. Plenty of room at their place at the table, conversation light and airy, including everyone and honoring everyone's opinion. Never scoff at someone's opinion. If you ask about the latest book by so-and-so and they say, "Oh, it's a terrible book, I didn't enjoy it at all," but you found it quite enlightening and enthralling, don't make a comment to them about, "Well, I don't know what's wrong with you and your feelings about the book because it was an excellent book." And no, you don't want to do that. You'll just embarrass them to say, "Oh, something like well, that's an interesting point of view. I hadn't looked at it like that before." You see how you can gently move things along without embarrassing. If you notice one of your guests is doing something that is making one of your other guests uncomfortable, draw their attention away. Not the person who's being embarrassed, but rather the person who's doing the embarrassing. They may be totally oblivious to the fact they're making your other guests feel uncomfortable. So, Henry, did I see you the other day down on Lincoln Street with George Foreman? Why, that was quite an unexpected surprise. I didn't realize he was in town. You see, you can steer the conversation and attention away from the person who's feeling uncomfortable while not embarrassing the person who is doing the unjust thing of putting the other person on the spot. So always be attentive as the host. Be aware of what's going on around the table. Don't get so engrossed in a conversation with the person next to you that you are unaware of what is going on. Always, always be attentive to your guests. Always honor their feelings. Never put them down. Never embarrass them. If someone at your table is getting out of hand, you might say gently, "George, may I have a word with you alone for a moment?" And then in another room to say, "George, I understand your passion about this topic and your feelings, but on behalf of the other guests and just to be polite to them, can we steer away from that topic for now? You and I can have a conversation about that at a later date." Again, be polite. Don't be rude. I mean, I have had on one occasion a case where I actually had to ask a guest to leave, and that was not a comfortable experience. And I'd rather not have to do that, so it's always best to handle things gently and politely, and just try and steer things in the right direction without coming across as bombastic or overpowering. So I hope you'll take these things into mind and keep them in mind as you invite guests for different functions over the holidays. Another thing to do is to keep in mind where your guests are coming from. If you're inviting someone of low means that's not used to fancy dinners, don't set out 12 knives and forks and spoons and embarrass them because they have no clue what to use them for. Keep things simple so that they feel at home and comfortable. You see, that's the mark of a true host and hostess, is making your guest feel comfortable and at home in your house. If you do otherwise, then you are simply trying to pat yourself on the back and make yourself feel superior. And if that's your aim, then stay to yourself and don't invite guests over. I would not want to be at your table. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's little session. I'm sorry I bored you with what is to you ancient history, but to me quite exciting news at the beginning. But I hope you will not hold that against me and will return next Friday as we continue looking at the proper manners and etiquette of a Victorian gentleman. Until then, I bid you adieu.